In 1886, munition workers from Woolwich formed Dial Square. A name change followed, and the new named Royal Arsenal in 1891 became the first professional London club. In 1893, they became Woolwich Arsenal, and in 1913, after relegation to the second division, Arsenal moved to Highbury and became simply the Arsenal. They have not been relegated since, a record of any British club. In 1925, the club was progressed to the next level by Herbert Chapman, who joined from Huddersfield, and in 1930, the first of a record 13 FA Cups was won. 2 league titles soon followed. In 1966, Bertie Mee became appointed manager. The ex-physiotherapist won the first European trophy for Arsenal, the Intercities Fair Cup in 1969. In 1971, Arsenal won the double, consisting of winning the league at White Hart Lane and the FA Cup versus Liverpool. After that, former player Terry Neill, coming at a ripe age of 34, becoming Arsenal's youngest ever manager. The only trophy in his era, though, was another FA Cup in 1979 with a 3-2 victory over Manchester United. Another ex-player, George Graham, was appointed in 1986. Arsenal won their first League Cup in 1987. George created a formidable team led by the real-life Fantastic Four: Lee Dixon on the right, Nigel Winterburn on the left, Steve Bold in the centre, and spearheaded by a Mr. Arsenal, Tony Adams. In 1989, Arsenal had their greatest moment. Anfield, against the 80s dominating Liverpool, needing to win by 2 clear goals. Arsenal won 2-0 with goals by Alan Smith and Michael Thomas. In 1990 to 1991, Arsenal were almost invincible, winning the league by just losing 1 game. The FA Cup and League double followed in 1993, and Arsenal claimed another European trophy, the 1994 Cup Winners' Cup versus Parma in Copenhagen. Graham left the club in 1995 under horrible circumstances, after which Bruce Rioch was appointed. The only thing of note happening in Bruce Rioch's reign was the signing of the greatest player to ever wear the Arsenal shirt, Dennis Bergkamp. In 1996, Arsenal took a gamble. A Frenchman, Arsene Wenger, led by his new attacking brand of football and an overhaul of fitness and diet and efficiency in the transfer window, defined the start of his reign. The 1998 double winners, the 2001 double winners, and arguably the greatest Arsenal team assembled, the 49-game, unbeaten Invincibles. In 2006, under Wenger, Arsenal were 14 minutes away from the best moment in their history, winning a Champions League. Unfortunately, we lost the game 2-1 against Barcelona. After 93 years at Highbury, Arsenal moved on to the Emirates Stadium. False promises and financial shackles caused a drought from 2005 until 2014, when then financial shackles was lifted and FA Cup dominance began again. A 3-2 win versus Hull, followed by wins over Aston Villa and Chelsea. Unfortunately, Europe and the league eluded Wenger. Football passed a once great man by, and Arsene was announced to depart after fan unrest and vitriol. It wasn't the send-off I expected or I wanted for such a once great man. On the 23rd of May, 2018, Arsenal began the next stage. A Spaniard with an emphasis on tactical nuances, work rate and effort, Unai Emery was appointed Arsenal manager. After that history lesson, you're probably wondering, where do I come into all of this? On the 8th of the 5th, 1996, age 4, I was taken to Paul Merson's testimonial at Highbury. An Arsenal versus International 11. Arsenal won 8-5. It was a weird game for Arsenal, seeing heroes of the enemy Paul Gascoigne and Glenn Hoddle in the red and white. The grandeur of Highbury, the beautiful red and white kits, the songs. I was hooked. I've been on Arsenal's campaigns ever since. From the heroes my father spoke so highly of: Charlie George, Liam Brady, Bob Wilson, Frank McClintock, McDonald, Thomas, Smith, Rocastle. To my heroes: Ian Wright, Tony Adams, David Seaman, Dennis Bergkamp, Patrick Vieira, Robert Pires, Thierry Henry. A new campaign begins. Can this modern crop become heroes? Mesut Ozil, Aaron Ramsey, Lacazette, Aubameyang. It's a baptism of fire, the very first game of the season versus the champions Manchester City. 37 league games follow, as well as the Cups and the Tour of Europe. I am James Johnston, and this is the campaign. Arsenal went into this game with Petr Cech in goal, Hector Bellerin at right back, a debut for Socrates at centre back, Mustafi at centre back, Maitland-Niles as the makeshift left back, Guendouzi making his Premier League debut, Granit Xhaka, Aaron Ramsey, Mesut Ozil, Mkhitaryan and Aubameyang. On the bench we had Leno, Holding, Lichtsteiner, Elneny, Torreira, Iwobi and Lacazette. During the game I thought Arsenal's defending was not good enough, especially in the early stages. Maitland-Niles as that makeshift left back was clearly exposed by Pep Guardiola's team as a weak link. The space that they were given to Kyle Walker and Riyad Mahrez was criminal. Mkhitaryan did not do enough to help protect Maitland-Niles at such a young age defensively in that game. Unfortunately for Arsenal, 14 minutes in they concede their first goal of the season. Raheem Sterling dances around Hector Bellerin and young Guendouzi shows him in on that right foot, which he rifles into the top corner. Petr Cech should have, but didn't, do better. Arsenal tried to be tight and compact in the middle of the back four, but City's flanks are the best in the league, and it clearly showed against a makeshift left back and a high-pressing Hector Bellerin. Bellerin, though, did have a great chance in the first half. He managed to beat Benjamin Mendy and smack one and force a save out of Ederson. Petr Cech in this game had what I can only describe as a Clint Eastwood, the good, the bad and the ugly. He made some fantastic saves during the game to keep it at only 2-0, but he also had some terrible, terrible moments. That near own goal and his distribution and playing it out with his feet in general was just poor. Unfortunately, 35 minutes in, Maitland-Niles' game was cut short due to injury, with Stefan Lichtsteiner coming on to make his Premier League debut. When he did come on, I thought Lichtsteiner was incredible. His age, experience and reading of the game was vital. It was 1-0 at half-time. Going into the second half, Aaron Ramsey made way for Alexander Lacazette. Me personally, I would have took off Granit Xhaka. He was on a booking and I thought he was having somewhat of a bad game. I thought maybe taking him off and moving Aaron Ramsey deeper and having Lacazette and Aubameyang together might have proved better doing for Arsenal. Lacazette had Arsenal's arguably best chance of the game with a snapshot volley that just missed the target. Unfortunately, it should have been nesting into the top corner. Lacazette knows he should have done better. 64 minutes in and City make it 2-0. Bernardo Silva. An easy goal that tucked right into the net as the defence fell asleep again. Lucas Torreira come on for his Premier League debut, but overall it wasn't much achieved. Arsenal were very, very poor up front against Manchester City, and they didn't take the chances that were presented to them. Lacazette, Bellerin, Ozil, Aubameyang all had a few chances to score. However, today Aubameyang especially felt incredibly isolated up front on his own during the first half. Petr Cech again at 36 years old, playing with the ball at his feet, was not good. He's never had that aspect to his game. And can you teach an old dog new tricks? Sadly, I don't think so. The fact that Petr Cech is being asked to play with his feet makes me ponder how bad is Leno with his hands. Positives from that game? I can only think of one. Guendouzi, 19 years old, coming from French Division 2 football against the champions of England. He didn't hide, he wanted the ball, and he was progressive in his play. Yes, he made the mistake for the first goal, but as his career gets on and he gets a bit older, hopefully those mistakes will be taken out of his game. Am I mad that we lost? Sure, but I'm not more as mad as I am disappointed. However, City are 3 years into a project at the peak of their powers and they'll dominate all teams they face in this year's Premier League. Arsenal are in transition. We're clearly adapting to a new way that I don't think currently the personnel that we have at the club is used to, and some might not be right for it. To expect Emery in 6 weeks of management to implement it flawlessly is just completely bollocks. As for the high press, it requires width and centre-backs who want to push forward as well. Mustafi and Socrates aren't these guys for me, sadly. And with that emphasis on work rate, Ozil and Mkhitaryan have all the substance, but do they have that graft? Unfortunately, I think a few people's favourites may not make it at this club going forward. However, roll on the next game, roll on Chelsea at the Bridge, and we must get a point minimum there. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe.